Hi, I'm Tony Vieira, PVC Product Specialist. And in this video, we're going to show you everything you need to know to do your own demo of CAV-GRIP PVC with PVC APEEL protective film membrane. And what you're going to need to get started is obviously a tank of CAV-GRIP PVC, some PVC untack, a gun and hose, and then PVC APEEL protective film membrane. Some other things that you're going to want to have is a broom, a weighted roller, some spare insulation, and then necessary PPE equipment. Now, as far as the items you see in front of you, we actually have a demo ordering kit option that has its own product code associated with it to make it easy when you're ordering this material. First, you're going to start by loose laying several pieces of insulation in place. Consider putting a piece of poly liner underneath the insulation to prevent the CAV-GRIP PVC from getting in between the joints in the insulation onto the floor. Cut the size of the membrane you want to adhere down. Something like 10 feet to 15 feet long is plenty. So you want to start by explaining some of the high-level benefits when it comes to a sprayable adhesive in comparison to a standard roller-applied bonding adhesive, for example. And two of the big things that would come to mind are going to be ease of application, but then also speed. You're looking at up to 60% faster application when it comes to a sprayable adhesive. And then as far as intended use, the CAV-GRIP PVC can be used on horizontal and vertical surfaces for PVC bareback membrane. It is not intended for PVC KEE HP membrane. And for fleece membranes, it can be used for vertical or wall attachment. And then also you're going to note that the tanks themselves are orange. That's to make it very distinguishable from the PVC adhesive in comparison to the TPO and EPDM CAV-GRIP product. Next, you're going to attach the appropriate end of the hose to the spray gun. Start by hand threading the hose onto the gun and then finish tightening with an adjustable crescent wrench. Once connected to the gun, then connect the hose to the tank by hand threading and then tightening with a wrench. Once fully connected, you can then open the tank valve. So to get started from here, we'll want to take the valve and we'll want to crank counterclockwise so that we get pressure on the line into the hose, into the gun. And then we'll want to take the field sheet and fold it halfway, so barn door it as they would generally do it in the field with a full 10-foot wide sheet, for example. Just like this. And then we're going to start by spraying both the membrane and the substrate. So the first thing you want to mention before you actually start spraying is that you do want to shake these tanks. We heavily promote that. These actually were already shaken before this video, but you want to shake generally about 30 seconds should be fine to get that adhesive so that the propellant is engaged and that it'll spray fine, and then it'll also help with coloring as well. So note that this is a two-sided contact adhesive whenever you're talking to an audience. So it does need to be applied to both the membrane and the substrate. And then as far as coverage rate with that in mind, you're looking at with the standard or the smaller cylinders, 750 square feet per small cylinder finished roof surface of membrane. And then with the large cylinders, they're essentially twice this size. For field applications, you're looking at twice that coverage rate. So you'd be looking at 1,500 square feet per large cylinder finished surface. Now, when you start spraying, or before you start spraying, there is a safety mechanism. It's an adjustable wheel on the gun itself. So by turning this counterclockwise all the way to the left, the trigger can be pulled and you're ready to spray. So we'll start again by spraying both the membrane and the substrate. Now, one thing that's good to have is to have a volunteer hold a board of insulation if you can, at least on the seams, even if it's not necessary, just to emphasize the concept or the trick that an insulation board can be used to basically shield the seam areas when they're applying the adhesive so that the adhesive doesn't get in those spots. So we keep going. Now we want to have about a 2 to 3 inch overlap with this adhesive in the field. And that 2 to 3 inch overlap is really just to ensure 100% coverage of the substrate when we're applying it, or whatever surface we're applying to. Walls are going to be a 50% overlap for that matter. So you're going to take a little bit more adhesive, walls or vertical surfaces. So it would be good to show a 50% overlap just at some point during the presentation. That way people can actually see what that looks like. So I'll show that on this pass right here. I'll do one more, just to show them again what walls would look like. And then again, it's good to have, anytime you're doing a demonstration like this, to have a volunteer come up, have somebody actually do this. That's when people really learn the best. So I would do a little bit of this if I was showing this for a demo, and then try to get really as many people as you can to get up and actually spray it. So one thing to talk about as well as I'm doing the rest of this is going to be temperature restrictions. This adhesive can be applied down to 35 degrees. However, the adhesive itself needs to be over 70 degrees, and it's not to exceed 110 degrees. So obviously in colder temperatures, keeping it over that 70 degrees is really the biggest challenge. And that's where we would say power blankets, for example, are going to really help to keep in colder temperatures that adhesive over that 70 degrees when you're applying. So after you're done applying the adhesive, one thing to make sure that you note to the audience is going to be flash off time and how we know when that actually takes place. So with CAV-GRIP PVC, that happens generally pretty quickly. And we know it's flashed off when we say it has little to no tack. So this is different than the CAV-GRIP that you would use on like EPDM and TPO, for example. Again, little to no tack is when we know it's ready. So you want to do just a dry knuckle, dry finger test to show the audience what that actually feels like. And this is a good point to actually have an audience member come up, or the audience members come up and actually see what this actually feels like for themselves. Flash off window, or the time that you have after it's flashed off, we say generally around 15 to 20 minutes after that flash off time is the window of time that you have to mate the membrane to the substrate. We don't give a one glove fits all size, a thing where we say that's going to be the case all the time. That's an approximate number. It's going to vary depending on things like temperature, humidity, and sunlight, for example. So after we do that, we're going to put the sheet in, and then we would want to broom it in front of the class and then roll it as well. So next you want to broom and roll the membrane. Start towards the center, work your way out, and then for the roller, you'll notice that I'm going to use a 150-pound segmented weighted roller. We always want to show a segmented weighted roller because those segments allow that roller to actually move and not pinch the membrane when we're using it. Just one pass with the roller is really all it takes. Make sure you get it entirely. So once you're done demonstrating one half of the sheet, just simply fold the sheet back in half the other direction and really have an audience member, if you can, come in, or audience members, come in and actually start applying the second half. So you see just like this right here. Again, emphasizing things like 2 to 3 inch overlap. All right, so after you're done adhering the membrane, you'll want to cover maintenance and cleaning. So when it comes to these tips, you'll notice with the CAV-GRIP PVC, it can kind of dry up on the tip itself to the point that it can't actually just be peeled off. So what a contractor wants to get is just like one of these brass wire brushes like what I have right here. So kind of think brass on brass with this. Now, you can purchase these really from pretty much any main hardware store, for example. They're just a couple bucks, and they're easy to find. So just basically take either acetone or PVC membrane cleaner. If you get just a little bit on a rag and work it into that adhesive that's on the tip, and then hit it with this brass wire brush, that should be good enough to clean it off to the point that it's not going to affect spray pattern. So sometimes roofers may use like a knife. They may use like a steel wire brush, for example. And the problem with those is you run the risk of scratching the tip itself to the point that it can actually affect spray. So we do sell these tips in packs of 10. So there's actually an item code for those. It's really easy to actually take this tip off and replace it. You just take off this piece that you see right here, loosen it to the left counterclockwise, pop the tip off, put a new tip back on, put put this back on, turn it clockwise to the right until it's snug, and you're good to go. After that, we'll talk about what you do with the hose and the gun once you've disconnected it from a tank. So let's say the tank is empty and you're switching it to another tank of CAV-GRIP PVC. You obviously want to shut the tank off by turning the valve clockwise all the way to the right. You remove the hose with a wrench, and then you're going to want to hook it up to the PVC untack. Once that gun and hose are exposed to air, basically that adhesive can start to dry up and it can clog the gun and hose if it's hooked up to another full tank of CAV-GRIP PVC. So you hook the gun and hose up to the untack, and then you spray just enough out so that you start seeing that clear mist from the PVC untack itself. Once you see that, you're fine. You can just unhook the gun and hose from the untack, hook it up to another tank of CAV-GRIP PVC, and you're good to go. So once you're done actually adhering the membrane sheet, what you want to do is talk about storage and disposal when it comes to these CAV-GRIP PVC tanks. So first things first, if there is a little bit of adhesive left in the tank, what you'll want to do is really simple. You can literally just leave the valve open, leave the gun and the hose connected, and we actually say you can leave it that way for 30 days and store it for 30 days. If it's over 30 days, we say to shut off the valve, disconnect the gun and the hose, and ideally you would want to run some untack through the gun and the hose so that it's actually clean the next time that you go to use it. And you can essentially keep that tank stored through its expiration date at that point. Now, if the tank is completely empty, the standard cylinders, like what you see right here, can actually be disposed of. So you'll want to make sure, I really note this, that it is completely empty before you do this. But there's actually a valve right here. You would want to punch a hole in that valve, and then you can dispose of it. So the large cylinders, I'll note, those cannot actually be disposed of, or they're not to be disposed of. There's actually a phone number on the sleeve itself on those large cylinders that if you call it, you can arrange pickup of those large cylinders and have them returned for free. You want to emphasize to applicators that return is free for those large cylinders. All right, so now we're ready to start telling the audience about the APEEL protective film membrane itself. And when it comes to the protective film, we have this on both PVC, standard PVC bareback, and KEE HP bareback membrane. Uses for this product I would think would be pretty obvious. It's going to keep the roof clean prior to it actually being removed. So it's obviously a good alternative when it comes to things like power washing that can be both costly and can potentially damage the roof membrane itself. As far as keeping the membrane clean, one of the benefits that comes from that is obviously a clean and more reflective roof long term. It is going to be a little bit easier on the eyes is another benefit of the product. So if you picture this as compared to a bright white roof, that is one of those benefits not a lot of people may think of. And then the fact that the film itself is lightly heat laminated, there are no adhesives that are actually used, and that helps to ensure that it is easy to remove long term and that it also stays in place well long term. It is important to note to the audience as well that our guarantee is 90 days that the roofer has after installation to actually remove the film itself. And it may be nice to have a couple volunteers to walk around on it, kind of get it a little bit dirty. That way when you go to remove it, it makes the benefits that much more obvious. One of the things that's nice to point out to the audience is the fact that we leave the protective film off the edge of the sheet just a little bit on each side. And this is, of course, so that the roofer can actually complete a weld there when they're installing this product itself. With the film in place, they wouldn't be able to actually get a weld at those locations. So it really makes life easier on them. When they're done actually installing and actually welding the seams themselves together, if they want to keep these seam areas entirely clean, they can actually use our APEEL cover tape applicator like what we see right here. This APEEL film or this APEEL tape just goes right over top of those seam areas after they've been welded, and that way when they go to remove the film, they'll remove both the film and the tape itself, and now they have a 100% clean roof. One of the things that might be nice to show the roofer as well, if you think about it, is if you take a pair of scissors, utility knife, and you make just a cut or a hole in the membrane itself, you can show them how much easier it is to actually identify and see that section if there is the film in place as opposed to if there's not. The final part of the demo is to remove the APEEL protective film itself. And when we're ready to do that, we'll start at one of the corners and just start peeling. Now this is a point where it would be nice to get an audience member to help so they can see how easily this film comes off. But if you want to point out to them, you can actually just take it even with 2 fingers and just remove it like this. And if you notice the area where we had the hole or the puncture before, the tear, the film came off just fine there. It didn't leave streaks or anything like that with film still left in place. So another major benefit that it does come off, as I said, very easily, even in areas where it does get torn. So again, you can see how easily it comes off. It is nice to, if you can think about it, to pass this around to some of the audience members. That way they can see for themselves how durable the film actually is while it's left in place. We hope you found this video to be a valuable resource when it comes to your own CAV-GRIP PVC and PVC APEEL protective film membrane demonstration. Please feel free to utilize the demo order kit option on the website, and please also feel free to reach out to the PVC product team with any questions you might have.